Welcome to Tell Me a Story. My name's Adina Samuels, and I'm inviting anyone and everyone to share their stories with me. Let's see what we get. Jackie, welcome to Tell Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Adina, for having me.
I'm
I'm
so
excited
excited
to
to
be
see you
here.
again. Yeah, me too. It's been a long time since we've chatted.
I
For everyone
know.
listening, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Jacqueline Ansumaya. I'm a Ghanaian staying in Ghana. I think, yeah, and I'm a journalist and a digital content creator.
Amazing. I'm so lucky to have you on the show. We've been friends now for 3+ years, and it's always good to have another content creator, journalist in your corner. So I've loved watching everything that you've been doing, and yeah, it's very
Yeah,
cool. So, Jackie, you know the
yeah.
rules. Everyone comes on the show with a story. I would love to hear your story. Please take it away.
Okay, all right. So I'd wanted to talk about my story. I mean, my growth in the industry, right from where I began till now. So I'll talk about maybe my university days. So it all started when I was in school. I mean, those times I knew you, Adina. I was trying to
Yeah.
find my path. And one thing about me during those times when I was in school was the fact that I always felt that I was different because most of the times I had my colleagues, my mates in university, everyone usually when you're in Ghana, there's this thing that your life seems figured out. Okay, so I want to complete school, then move to this field and do that. Personally, I didn't have that. I didn't have that. It felt weird because everyone, whenever you have a conversation with everyone, it seems like they've got everything figured out. Okay, so after school, I want to do my national service here. I want to work here. I want to be a teacher. But personally, I didn't have that. I was just going around in circles. I was just doing everything at a point. And
That
my
is so
parents kept on
relatable.
asking,
I was exactly the same.
yeah,
You're gonna say my parents were like, Jackie or Adina, go to school, go just do anything. And I'm like, I can't. Yeah, I understand that.
yeah. So that was how it felt like. And at a point, I felt lost a bit, but I tried to blend in. So fast forward after school, I stayed back in Winneba where we met. I did my national service there. And during that time, I still didn't have my life figured out. I felt all my colleagues were moving forward, moving out of the space where we all went to college. We were all at. And it felt I was stuck. But then I was in a car with my stepdad. Then he told me that he likes the way I love this media thing, so he feels like I should pursue it. But personally, I didn't even think about it that way. So I went home. When we go home, I did my research and all of that. I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just try and apply for something. And that was like last minute. I mean, I applied for journalism and media studies. But bear in mind, I didn't do journalism and media studies in my undergrad, even though I was doing media related stuff. I didn't have any media background. You get it.
Well,
So,
talk a little bit about your YouTube channel because that was going on in the background the whole time. Like that's what I
yes,
know. You were so passionate about.
I was. So, I didn't really know what I was doing then. I was just being, it all started with me just being in front of the camera. Then it was around 2019 that I realized that, okay, so you could make money off YouTube. So I did a little bit of rebranding. Then I started to put in a lot of effort in my content just to make it appealing for me to get more viewers. So that was what even landed me into the journalism. So people started seeing my work, and I was doing a bit of radio work too. So it was just like me going in circles, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I was just like around that field. So after that conversation with my dad, then I was like, okay, you know what? I think it's not a bad idea. I did my research. And initially, I thought the course was going to be a short course. I didn't even know it was going to be like a graduate school course. So I picked it up, applied for last minute. I mean, it was 31st December, and that was the deadline for the course. And personally, when I was applying for the course, I didn't have faith. Like I didn't have faith I was going to get it. I was like, you know what? Let me just do it anyways. Let me just do it. Whatever thing that happens should
Mm.
happen. So fast forward a month later, I got admission into it. Then, I mean, I wouldn't want to waste time and talk about how school was like. But then I really got to know pure journalism. I realized that okay, so what I was doing was just, I mean, having an idea about it was good, but then learning about it theoretically helped me. So it was after first year that we're supposed to do our internship. I still wanted to stay behind because I felt I had built my brand in that area in Winneba, Central Region to be precise. And I felt that people knew me there. Moving away from that space means I now had to start all over again. So it sort of scared me at a point because now no everyone knows Jackie here. So if you move away, it's just going to be very difficult. So I spoke
Yeah.
to two friends of mine, two very close friends of mine, and one was like, "No, you've got to go." And the other person, I was even working for her, so I was even surprised she was telling me I've got to go because then when I go, I mean, whatever working relationship that we have will probably cease and all that. So I was surprised she was like, "No, you've got to go." So I thought about it,
When you say go, you
and I
mean
came to
like
Accra.
going to Accra to the capital
Accra,
city,
yeah, because
like
I had to
where the
move.
magic happens. Yeah.
Great. Where the magic happens. So, and personally, I didn't want to come home. I didn't want to stay with family because the path I felt I was carving for myself, staying at home would get me restricted. So I didn't have anybody that I was coming to live with in Accra. So I called a friend and she was like, why not? I could come there. So I went to stay. She accepted me. I went to stay here. I went to stay in her house. I was actually sleeping in her, the chamber and hall setting. So I was sleeping in a certain area. I wasn't sleeping
Mm,
in the bedroom. I was sleeping in a certain area and I was going to work. I was so excited about it. But bear in mind, my background in YouTube and content creation was why I got accepted to do my internship with Joy in the first place. Because I remember our now general manager, he had a conversation with me. He sort of went to my socials to see what I was doing. I wasn't doing much then, but he felt I had potential. So that was how it started. So I learned a lot of stuff on the ground. Fast forward, it wasn't easy accommodation wise, but the truth of the whole issue was that whatever thing I was going through then, I never told anybody about it. I never
mm,
did, especially when it comes to accommodation issues, because my friend, when I stayed with her for a bit, she had to, I wouldn't want to use kick me out, but I had to move her because the duration I gave her had elapsed. And I had to
mm,
move her because she said she was expecting some visitors and all that. So I had to move her. So then I was like, should I go back to Winneba or should I stay in Accra? And it was like things were starting to pick up for me in Accra. So should I go back? Should I stay? It was very difficult. I started to talk to people. People will raise your hopes up and tell you that, okay, so they're going to get back to you. Then they don't. And you have to crash here for the night and all that. And there are times that I was spending late hours. I didn't tell anybody about this issue. I was spending late hours at work because then I didn't want it to be like, you've closed from work early, you go to your friend's house, and that kind of tension. So then I rather prefer to stay back at work, probably just be there, and later on I just go home. So that
mm.
had been the situation for a while, but then it got to a point that I had to leave her apartment. So
But the problem
and I
was,
was
sorry, the problem was just like finding a new place in Accra was difficult or expensive, or what was the issue?
So, the problem was that I was already renting in Winnie, but I didn't let go of my place because my rent wasn't up.
Oh, okay.
And as young as I am, it would be pointless for me to be renting two places at a time. I mean, I was just starting life, and rent in Accra is expensive. You've been in Ghana before, you know how it is. Rent in Accra is super
Yeah.
expensive. I couldn't afford it then because I wasn't working. I was just an intern. I wasn't on any payroll. And usually internships
Oh,
in Ghana are not paid. You get it?
okay.
It's just like you
Yeah.
getting this sort of experience and all that. So I was just putting in my all, trying to learn. And so there I was. Should I go back? Should I stay? Because now I wasn't getting any option. Friends that I was calling, people that I knew, they were all disappointing me. And I told myself that I don't know. So just when I decided to go back to Winneba, I, in fact, I planned. I was like, you know what? The only option for me now is to be going to Winneba and coming back. But that's going to be a long drive because now the road is terrible. So it will take me like 2 to 3 hours every day to move from Winneba to Accra. But I was willing to do that. That's the craziest aspect. I was actually willing to do
Yeah.
that because of the job. But remember, this job is something that wasn't paying me. So
That's
I
crazy.
had to place a. I had to. A friend of mine paid me to teach her edits, phone edits. I used to teach people how to do some edits. So I placed a call to her to tell her that I'll be leaving Accra soon. So we need to. I had just 1 week frame, so we could do something during the week that I'm around before I leave because if I'm going to be doing to and fro from Winneba to Accra, it's going to be very stressful, and I wouldn't be getting time to teach her. So then what happened was, after when she picked up the call, she was like, "Oh, she's sorry she hasn't been able to get back to me," and she was moving into a new place. Then I asked her, "Could I come crash there for a bit?" She was like, "Oh, why not? Because it's a new place." You get it.
Mhm.
I moved there. It was a very small place, but at least I had a roof over my head. So I started to sleep on the floor of a room.
Oh.
Yeah,
Had you ever been in a situation like that before, like where you literally didn't know where you were gonna sleep? Like that's a scary
I know. That
situation
was
to
the
be
first
in.
time. You've always been under the wings of your parents. Always, I had,
Yeah.
I mean, a flourishing. I wouldn't say it was a flourishing career, but I was popular when I was in the university. I had like just this little thing around me going on, so I had to
You
move
never
away
had
from
to
my
worry
comfort
of it.
zone.
It's like something that you had taken for granted up until all of a sudden it didn't exist, you know? You don't realize what
Great,
you have until it's gone. Yeah.
great. I never told anyone about it. So I was sleeping in her room. I slept on the bare floor, never complained. I mean, that it was a very small space. She just had a smaller bed. We both couldn't sleep on it. It was just, you could just imagine and picture how it was. So I literally had no option than to sleep on the bare floor in her space. And I would always be grateful to her for that opportunity, even though I slept on the floor then. But currently where I am right now is thanks to her, because if she didn't take me under her roof, then even though it was small, I'm not sure I'll still be here. So fast forward, it was a roller coaster. One almost like it was 8 9 months. I was sleeping on the bare floor. I started developing back pains, Adina. Yeah,
I'm sure you did because you're on the floor.
yeah, I just put pillows there and just a cloth. But I would always say the interesting thing is still nobody knew our work. Nobody knew my predicament. Nobody knew the situation I was in.
Why did you keep it to yourself? Why didn't you tell people?
Okay, okay, so the space I was getting myself into, as a media work, there are certain things about your personal life that you don't put out there. You get it. And I just didn't feel like I felt that once I tell someone, the person's going to tell another person and all that. And no one is really out there to help you like that. You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I didn't want to do was to tell this person that, okay, I'm going through this, and knowing very well the person wasn't going to help me. So I kept it to myself. And this was also a point in time where I was picking up. I was the what I was learning at where I was interning was picking up for me. I was being put on project. I was moving a step further. I mean, I wasn't like how I came. I was always learning, so I was being put on projects. My bosses gave me bigger tasks and all that, which was like a step in the right direction. So whatever thing I was going through at that moment didn't bother me. All I cared about at that point was, then I just wanted to make sure that I just learned this. I don't know what I was actually thinking then, but that was how it was. So fast forward, after a year going through that terrible phase that I never told anybody about, you're the
Wait,
first person I'm
you
telling about.
lived on someone's floor for a year? You slept on her floor?
Yeah,
Or you were, oh,
yeah.
that's crazy, Jackie.
Just like in the room, you know how the Ghani. I don't know how you. I'm pretty sure your audience would understand. It's like the bedroom. Her place was just like a single room with a
Yeah, it's a
washroom inside.
studio. Like everything's in
Great.
one place. Yeah.
Yes, but it
Yeah.
was very small, and she only had like a very small student mattress, and it was actually on the floor. So what we had to do was, I also slept on the floor. Like we both couldn't share. It's not like she didn't want to share with me, but it's
Yeah.
just too small. So I could only sleep on the bed when she travels. You get it?
Yeah.
Or when she's not
Yeah.
around, then I just
And
sleep
that
on the
was like a
floor.
luxury. Like you get this tiny little bed to yourself, like on those days.
I mean, those days I wouldn't experience back pains. I'll be able to sleep comfortably and all that. Yeah, that was how it was. But fast forward, it actually helped me. Everything that I have been through that moment actually propelled me, or it strengthened me, or gave me hope that things were going to turn out for the better. So fast forward, I realized that the back pain was becoming like worse. So I needed to move out, and my rent too in Winneba then was actually expiring. So what I had to do was to try and save up to find my own place. And when I saved up for just a year. Now landlords were like, in Accra, usually they take like a 2 year rent. They don't take 1 year rent.
Mm.
and I had only saved up for just 1 year. And I was doing other different jobs. Apart from doing the internship, I was doing this radio work somewhere else where I was earning like very less, very, very less. You get it? So
Yeah.
all those money was what I was trying to save up for rent. And finally, when I decided to get money, landlord says that he needs 2 years. So now you need extra cash. So I don't know how things pulled through, but then the person I was working with when I was in Winneba, who asked me to move to Accra, she sort of added some. I didn't even ask for help. I didn't even ask for help. I was
Mm.
doing things for her willingly. I didn't even ask for help. Then she was like, you know what? You've been instrumental in helping my brand, even though that you never asked for anything, like anything in major. She just gave me some money to add up to the cash that I had. Then I rented. So that was how
Wow.
the
Okay.
journey was for me. And I remember the first day that I moved, this the place that I still am at. I remember the first day that I moved in here, I even had to sleep on the floor in here. But what I told myself was, it's better to, I mean, sleep on the floor of your own apartment. Not because I didn't have a bed, but because when I was moving in here, there was a severe rainfall that my bed got soaked and wet. So
Oh,
for some days,
oh, terrible.
oh my, so
You're
I
like, you
couldn't.
finally get your new place, your new apartment, and then you're still sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, that was it. So that was how it was. And fast forward, here I am now. Things has been great, incredible in the past few years. I had a break in my career. That was like 2 years ago when I was put on. There's this thing called the National Science and Maths Quiz. It's a big thing here in Ghana where we have all the senior high schools like competing for the ultimate. So I was put on it. I remember the first time that my boss asked me, I was like, I didn't know much about it. I was like, I was actually hesitant. But then I thought about it, well, like, you know what, let me give it a shot. I had to
What,
do a
to
lot of,
host it, or what was your
no,
role?
to report on it. So it means I was
Ah,
literally going to be on TV every day. I was going to be on TV every day. It was like a month long something. So then after that, I mean, I learned around the NSMQ. For short, it's known as NSMQ. By Ghana, it's like the National Science
okay.
and Maths Quiz. And I had to learn around it, had to know the terminologies and all that because that was my very first time. And I don't know what happened, but videos of the event, the program started going viral. People started noticing me. I mean, that was a big break I had in my career then. People started
Amazing.
noticing Jackie. And this is someone who, whatever thing I have been through, people didn't know. Like, people didn't know whatever thing I had been through the face. And I started going viral. And when I came back after 1 month, when we came back, I got so much compliments from my bosses, from people who didn't know me and all that. My social media followers started to increase. You know how it works when your stuff starts to go viral. So that was the beginning. I'll say I had already started the career, but that was the beginning of it, even though I'm not there yet. But then I believe that I've had different moments. And luckily last year, 2024, I had the opportunity of being the team lead for that event, even though I just had like just one experience before. And it was
Mm,
very difficult because I just had opportunity to host, to be part of, like, be a co-host for the, like, I mean, be part of the reporters. We were three. We were three, then later on it was down to two. So last year, I then had to be the team lead, which was like a very daunting task. But then, I mean, I put up my best, and that was how it was. So that's been my story so far. It's been, it's still been amazing day in and day out. I keep learning. I keep learning things about this life and knowing very well that there's a lot of things that we need to learn. Life is always like a learning. It's like a journey where you learn every day. It's not always going to be rosy. But if you're an individual where you know where you want to get to, you're not actually perturbed about all the stuff that you go through.
yeah, what I think is interesting is going back to your university days, you didn't really know what you wanted to do. Like, yeah, you had your YouTube channel, you were doing all this emceeing everywhere, but you didn't really
Yeah.
see it as a potential career. You didn't know
No.
what it could look like. And as soon as that flip switched with your stepdad, and then you started seeing, like, oh, I can study this and I can do this for a living, it's like it became the most important thing to you. Like you were willing to
Yeah.
drive 3 hours each way to work or sleep on the floor or not have a home and all this stuff. Like, where do you think that passion came from? Like, why was it so important to you when really you could have just gone back to Winneba where you had an apartment, you have a ton of friends, you're really comfortable. What was it about the work that made you want to sacrifice so much?
Truthfully, I think that's a good question, but I certainly know it wasn't about the money because it was. If it was about the money, I would have stopped a long time ago.
There was
I
no
believe it
money.
was.
There was no money in the beginning.
There was no money in the beginning. I believe it was something that had to do with building myself up at a point, knowing what I really wanted. Because when I found my true potential, that this was what I really wanted to do, I felt that okay. So then I didn't even know anything. I thought I knew, but then I didn't know anything. So it was like then I had to start all over again and learn new things, which came at a cost. The cost was sleeping on people's floors, not being paid for like a long time and all that, just sacrificing yourself and making sure that at the end of the day, when someone sees you, the person will know. I mean, all that you've been through wasn't just for anything. So I'll say that it wasn't just about the money. It was about also building myself or getting to understand certain things in life. And I actually got to love the job. But growing up, I knew as a child I always wanted to be a journalist, but at a point I stopped. I just didn't know what I wanted to do because then you grow up at every point in your life, you tell yourself that okay, so I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm pretty sure Adina, you've been through that phase before, but
Absolutely.
yeah, but then I feel when I finally found out that okay, so this is something that I could I do best because I think I found my potential there. I know how to
Yeah.
talk. I know how to put certain things together. And it was also the
Be on
compliment
stage.
I was
Yeah.
great. And I feel it was also like the compliments, the go ahead I was getting from my bosses, even though there was no money involved, like my superiors and my mentors and all those people. It felt like, okay, so you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And I mean, that was how it was. Also, having the good people around you, having good people around you is also very essential.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like I'm at a point in my career, and it sounds like you kind of are too, where you can look back and see how all of the experiences made sense to get you where you are today. But while I was experiencing all those experiences, I was like, what am I even doing? Like when I worked as a podcast producer, I'm like, what, am I going to be a podcast producer forever? And when I worked as like a content writer, I was like, well, is this like what's my plan? But sometimes
Yeah.
I think the lesson is you don't necessarily need to know the end goal, especially in the creative industries. You can have like an
Yeah.
idea that you're working towards, and as long as you're kind of staying true to yourself, I think
Yeah.
hopefully eventually you'll get there. Not to say that we're at the end of our journeys, like we're both really just at the beginning, but
I know, right?
you could have like gone to law school, right? And just done that because it's the
Yeah.
safe thing to do and it's what your friends were doing or whatever, but something was
Because
saying,
I
no.
nearly gave up because the point where I didn't have any place to stay. When I was going to, I'm not even sure I was going to do that 3 hour journey. I knew that when I get there and any other opportunity comes, I was going to grab it. You get it. But then it
Yeah.
took that one call to that friend of mine to change everything at that point because I was bent. I was like, you know what? I think I've done enough. I'm tired. I've tried all that I could. I mean, I placed a lot of calls. I literally took my contact list, call this person, call this person, call. I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. And I know people that even till now, they haven't been able to call me. They haven't been able to speak to me. I don't know if you're embarrassed or what, because probably they couldn't come through for me. But I know people that till date, I mean, we were close, but then ever since I asked for help and they couldn't help, till then, none of them, some of them too, they see my stuff on social media, but they haven't been able to text me and all that.
Well,
But
it's
it's been
it's
good.
also hard. Yeah, it's hard for you to even ask for help. Like it's not an easy thing to have to say to your
Yeah,
friends, like I need your help. So
yeah,
I think that was like a brave thing that you did too. I'm
yeah.
wondering though, you said that you haven't told anyone this story. No one in your work life knew about it or in your personal life.
Yeah,
Why
it's
did you
just
want to tell
family.
tell me? Yeah. Why
Yeah,
did you
I
want to
just
share the
feel
story with
that
me?
I always told myself that this is a story that I feel it would inspire people. I mean, younger people out there, whoever out there who is just struggling in their career, because sometimes the money has to pay your bills and all that. But I just feel like sometimes, especially in a certain careers that you find yourself in, there are certain things that are equally important, like building up, trying to resist certain stuff, so that when you get to a certain point, you know that okay, so you experience this at a point in your life, and you'll be able to withstand whatever phase or whatever thing that you'd be going through. You get it? So I feel that this story is something worth sharing. It's not most people. I mean, some of them would be surprised to hear me say this. It's only family, because I put up a good. Everything was okay with me. You see me, I'm smiling. I didn't look like my troubles. That's the whole point. I didn't look it.
Yeah.
But then I was going through. You'd be depressed. There's no money. You don't have a good place to sleep. I still smiled. I still did my job. It never for once affected my job in any way. It never for
Mm.
once did. That's the whole point. So sometimes it's just like something that has built me up for a long time. So now when I'm faced with any challenge, I tell myself that, girl, you've been through worse.
Yeah, you
You
slept
have
on
been
the
through
floor.
worse.
You can handle this.
Yeah, you can handle this. You've been through worse, so you can handle this.
Thanks for listening to Tell Me a Story. If you like what you heard, like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill.